أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الصلاة والسلام على محمد وعليه الطيبين الطاهرين Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So we're going to continue with Prophet Musa. This is the last part. And in part 4, we saw where the Bani Israel were exiled into the desert for 40 years because of their ingratitude, their stubbornness, and their disobedience. Now, while they are in this desert, a few things happen. Now, let's look at them. So today we will cover, when it says Surah Al-Kahf, we're going to cover the incident where Prophet Musa meets Prophet Khidr. We will look at the wafat of Prophet Harun, and finally the wafat of Prophet Musa. So while they're in this desert, 1 year, Prophet Musa and Prophet Harun, along with Prophet Harun's 2 sons. Now their names were Shabbar and Shabir, some say Shabbar and Shubair, and that is why when Imam Ali alayhi salam had Imam Hassan and Hussein, the Prophet said, "You are to me like Harun was to Musa," and therefore you call your sons Shabbar and Shubair. The equivalent in Arabic is Hassan and Hussein. So they went to perform the Hajj. Now along the way, they meet 70 other prophets and they go towards Bakka. Can you just imagine what it must be like? And that was in essence responding to the invitation of Prophet Ibrahim, which we find in Surah Al-Hajj, where he says, وَأَذِّن فِي النَّاسِ, do adhan, proclaim, shout it out to people, bil hajji, about Hajj. يَأْتُوكَ رِجَالًا, you will find they will come وَعَلَى كُلِّ ذَامِرٍ يَأْتِينَ مِنْ كُلِّ فَجٍّ عَمِيقٍ. They will come on every sort of transport. Now you could say every lean camel, but in essence they will come in whatever way they can, and they will come from every remote path. And during this time, Shabbar and Shabir make it a point to pray in the house of their uncle Ismail's house, directly beneath the place where today you find the golden spout, you know, where the golden pipe is. That's basically where they prayed. So now in this 4th year of exile, one day, Prophet Musa is with his people, and someone said, "I don't believe there's anyone on earth who's more knowledgeable than you, Ya Musa." Now remember, Prophet Musa was a man full of humility, and he thought, my goodness, this is sowing a seed of arrogance in me. And he said, "Ya Allah, is there anyone more knowledgeable than me?" He desperately wanted to reaffirm his humility by meeting someone who could remind him how limited his knowledge was. And now Allah tells him, you will go and meet Prophet Khidr. Prophet Khidr's name was Dalia, son of Milkan, son of Aber. And it goes up to, he was the grandson of Shem, the son of Prophet Nuh. And he was a prophet and a messenger sent by Allah to his people to call them into believing in the one God, right? And his miracle was that the ground around the place he sat would burst into flowers and greenery, and this is why he came to be known as Khidr, which means the green one. And Allah tells Musa that he would find Prophet Khidr at the junction of the 2 seas, where a dead fish would miraculously come to life. So let's look at Surah Al-Kahf, where it says, وَإِذْ قَالَ Musa, and Musa tells his Fatah is like his protege. So he tells his protege, whose name was Yusha bin Nun, he tells him that لا أبرح حتى أبلغ مجمع البحرين أو أمضي حقبة. I will not stop until I reach the junctions of the 2 rivers, or I will just go on for years and years and years. Now let's see what happened. First of all, we got to remember that he put Prophet Harun in charge of the Bani Israel in the deserts. Now they had packed some provisions, including whole dried fish, which Prophet Musa gave to Yusha bin Nun. And they traveled until they reached a place where the 2 seas met. And they sat down upon a rock to rest. Yusha bin Nun leaves the fish and his pack at the water's edge so he could drink and wash himself. And he must have inadvertently splashed a little bit of water on this fish, because it suddenly jerked, it flicked its tail, and before he could react, it jumped into the sea and vanished. Now he was so amazed, he wanted to tell Prophet Musa, but he saw that Prophet Musa was resting and didn't want to disturb him. And by the time Prophet Musa awoke, Yusha had forgotten what had happened to the fish, and they continued on their way. So you see, Allah says, فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ مَجْمَعَ بَيْنِهِمَا. So when they reached the junction of the two rivers, نَسِيَ حُوتُهُمَا, they forgot their fish, وَاتَّخَذَ سَبِيلُهُ فِي الْبَحْرِ سَلَبًا, and they just took their they took their way to the sea, and they just went away. Now they walked for a while until Prophet Musa said to Yusha, bring us our meals. We're so tired with this journey of ours. And here Allah says, فَلَمَّا جَاوَزَ كَالَ. But when they got a bit further, he said, لِفَتَاهُ, to his protege, آتِنَا غَدَاءَنَا لَقَدْ لَقِينَا مِنْ سَفَرِنَا هَذَا نَصَبًا. Bring our morning meal. Certainly we're tired on this meal. And suddenly Yusha remembered what had happened to the fish. He said, when you were taking a rest at that rock, I forgot to tell you about the fish. Shaitan made me forget. Anyway, amazingly, the dried fish made its way into the sea. And Prophet Musa said, this is what we were after. We've got to retrace our footsteps to the spot where we went. And again we continue. So Quran says, قَالَ أَرَأَيْتَ إِذْ أَوَيْنَا إِلَى الصَّخْرَةِ فَإِنِّي نَسِيتُ الْحُوتَ. He said, did you see when we took refuge on the rock that I forgot the fish? وَمَا أَنْسَانِيَهُ إِلَّا الشَّيْطَانِ. Shaitan made me forget. And أذكره, that I might remember it. وَاتَّخَذَ سَبِيلُهُ فِي الْبَحْرِ أَجَبًا. And the fish just went in the river. It was ajib. And Musa says, قَالَ ذَلِكَ مَا كُنَّا نَبْغِي فَارْتَدَّ عَلَىٰ آثَارِهِمَا قَصَصًا. This is what we need to go for. So they retraced their footsteps back to that junction. So they went back and they find Prophet Khidr, who was praying, sitting in a bed of greenery and flowers that had blossomed around him. And they came to him, sat near him, and he greeted them and said, who are you? And Prophet Musa says, I am Musa, son of Imran, and this is Yusha, son of Nun. And Khidr said, you are Musa, with whom Allah spoke? And he nodded his head, and he said, what can I do for you? And Musa said, I have come to learn from you. You are knowledgeable. I want to learn from you. May I follow you? Will you teach me the guidance you've been taught? And immediately, now he knew his CV, he knew his history. So Prophet Khidr says he will never have the patience to be with it, because remember, Prophet Musa could not bear injustice, and he would just react. We saw in his life how he reacted to the Bani Israel fighting to one of the Egyptian soldiers, if you remember. Anything that caused injustice, he would just react. And Prophet Khidr says, I've been assigned a task that you cannot bear, just as you have been assigned a task I cannot bear. You have not been given awareness of the secrets that I bear. So how can you possibly have patience in the face of events whose wisdom you are unaware? Prophet Musa says, you will, inshallah, find me patient. I will not disobey you. And Khidr said, if you will follow me, do not ask me concerning anything until I say it myself. Again, look at Qur'an, Surah Al-Kahf. فَوَجَدَ عَبْدًا مِّنْ عِبَادِنَا. Then they found one from amongst our servants. آتَيْنَاهُ رَحْمَةً مِّنْ إِنْدِنَا. We granted him mercy. This is really important to understand. Allah's mercy comes in the form of knowledge. وَعَلَّمْنَاهُ مِنْ لَدُنَّا إِلْمًا. And we taught him knowledge from ourselves. And قال له Musa said, هل أتبعك على أن تعلمني مما علمت رشدا. Shall I follow you on condition that you teach me knowledge of what you have been taught? Immediately says, إنك لن تستطيع معي صبرا. You will not have patience. وكيف تصبر على ما لم تحط به خبرا. How can you have patience in something that you don't have a comprehensive 360 knowledge of? قال, he says, ستجدوني إن شاء الله صابرا. You will find me to have sabr. ولا أعصي لك أمرا. I will not disobey you. And then, just like he said, قال فإن اتبعتني فلا تسألني عن شيء. If you follow me, don't question me about anything. حتى أحدث لك منه ذكرا. Until I myself speak to you about it. So Prophet Khidr and Prophet Musa go together. They board a small boat at a nearby dock. It was a simple vessel owned in partnership by some poor sailors, and they used to fish or catch fish, and this is how they made their living. As they waited for the sailors to settle in, Prophet Musa saw this tiny bird chirping and snatching up tiny sips of water, and a smile appeared on Prophet Khidr's face. He said, do you know what she's telling us? And Prophet Musa said, no, tell me. And Prophet Khidr says, by the Lord, by the Rabb of the sky and the earth, and by the Rabb of the sea, your combined knowledge in relation to Allah's knowledge is like the sip of water I draw with my beak in relation to the sea, rather less still. It's talking about both their knowledges. Now, just as they were about to set sail, Prophet Khidr stood up, raised his staff, and knocked a hole through the boat's bottom. The sailors got so angry and they kicked them both off their boat, and they got the task of repairing the boat. And Prophet Musa says, why'd you make a hole in it and drown these poor sailors? You've done an awful thing. Prophet Khidr smiled and shook his head and said, did I not say you will not have patience with me? Again, Qur'an. فانطلقا, they went. حتى إذا ركب في السفينة, and they boarded a boat. خرقها, made a hole in it. قال أخرقتها لتغرق أهلها لقد جئت شيئا إمرا. You made a hole to drown its inmates? You've done a grievous sin. And he said, Alam أقل إنك لن تستطيع معي صبرا. Did I not tell you that you will not have patience? And look at what Prophet Musa said. He said, please don't take me to task for having forgotten. Don't be hard on me. قال لا تؤاخذني. Don't take me to task. before what I forget. ولا ترهقني من أمري أسرا. And don't constrain me for a difficult thing in my affair. So they set off from the docks until they came across a young boy, and without a moment's hesitation, Prophet Khidr killed the child. Musa was shocked. He said, you've just killed an innocent soul? What's wrong with you? You've done a despicable thing. Khidr said, did I not tell you? You will not have the patience to be with me. Prophet Musa said, okay, if I question you about anything after this, don't keep me in your company. And, we will break this agreement. I will release you from the agreement, or in other words, this agreement will not be possible as far as I'm concerned. So here, Qur'an again, it's literally Qur'an. فَانْطَلَقَ, they went, حَتَّى إِذَا لَقِيَ غُلَامًا, they saw a small boy, a young man. فَقَتَلَهُ, he killed him. قَالَ قَتَلْتَ نَفْسًا زَكِيَّةً, you killed an innocent person. بِغَيْرِ نَفْسٍ لَقَدْ جِئْتَ شَيْئًا نُكْرًا. In any language, nukra, in any society, this is not a good thing. قال ألم أقل لك إنك لن تستطيع معي صبرا. Did I not tell you that you will not have patience with me? قال إن سألتك, if I ask you again عن شيء about anything بعدها, after this, فلا تصاحبني, don't be my companion. قد بلغت من لدني عذرا, and you will have found an excuse to let go of our agreement. So they set off once more. They're extremely hungry, and because they've not taken any provisions with them. So they came upon a people of a town, and they asked the people for food, but they refused to extend the hospitality to them. And in the town they found a wall which was just about to collapse, and Khidr set out to erect it and prevent it from falling down. Prophet Musa asked him, or expected him to ask the owners of the property to compensate for the efforts with some food, but he didn't. And as they walked away, now look, he didn't ask, didn't say anything. He just blurted out, had you wished, you could have taken wages for that work. He didn't ask, okay, because he knew you're not supposed to ask. So he said, you could have taken some recompense for it. فَانْطَلَقَ حَتَّى إِذَا أَتَيَا أَهْلَ قَرْيَةٍ, they come to the town, استطعنا أهلها, and they found these people, فأبوا أن يضيقهما فوجد فيها جدارا. They found them not hospitable. And then they found this jidar, this wall, yuridu an yanqassa فأقامه, and it was about to fall, and they made it to stand again. قال لو شئت لاتخذت عليه أجرا. If you wanted, you could have taken some recompense. قال, and this is what Prophet Khidr says. He says, هذا فراق بيني وبينك. I'm afraid this is where you and I shall part. سأنبئك بتأويل ما لم تستطيع عليه صبرا, but I will first inform you of the reality of these things for which you did not have patience. أما السفينة, as for the boat, فكانت لمساكين يعملون في البحر, it belonged to the poor people who worked at sea. فأردت أن أعيبها وكان وراءهم ملك يأخذ كل سفينة غصبا. I wanted to make it defective because behind them was a king who was wrongfully confiscated every vessel he found. By knocking a hole in it, he was able to convince the king's men that the boat was of no use in the king's fleet, and so they left it to its rightful owners. وَأَمَّا الْغُلَامِ, as for the boy, what happened? فَكَانَ أَبَوَاهُ مُؤْمِنِينَ, his parents are believers. فخشينا أن يرهقهما طغيانا وكفرا. And we feared he would overwhelm them with rebellion and disbelief, and we would make him sad. We would make them sad. In other words, they would be really, really distressed. He says, فَأَرَوْنَا أَن يُبْدِلَهُمَا رَبُّهَا خَيْرًا مِنْهُ. So we desired that their Rabb would give them in his place a better person, مِنْهُ زَكَاةً وَأَقْرَبُ رُحْمًا, who would be more pure and who would have more compassion. So he knew that this boy, though innocent now, would eventually turn against his parents, and he would move them away from belief as well because of their love for the child. And he said, we hope that Allah would then provide, or it was not long before Allah provided them with a righteous daughter who would later be married to a prophet, and from their line would arise 70 prophets. وَأَمَّا الْجِدَارُ, as for the wall, فَكَانَ لِلْغُلَامَيْنِ يَتِيمَيْنِ, it belonged to 2 orphans في المدينة, of the city, وكان تحته كنز لهما, and underneath was a treasure belonged to them. وكان أبوهما صالحا, and their father was really, really righteous. فأراد ربك, and your Rabb wanted, أن يبلغ أشدهما ويستخرج كنزهما رحمة من ربك. He wanted that treasure to go to their rightful owners, in other words, so that they may get them in maturity. That's a rahmah from their Rabb. وَمَا فَعَلْتُهُ عَنْ أَمْرِ ذَلِكَ تَأْوِيلُ مَا لَمْ تَسْتَطِعْ عَلَيْهِ صَبْرًا. And this is the significance of that which you did not have patience. So it said that the treasure comprised not only of gold and silver, but a tablet upon which was written, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, I am Allah, there is no God but me, Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. I wonder how a person, and this was written on that tablet, I wonder how a person can be so arrogant when he's certain of death. I wonder how a person can laugh loudly when he's certain that he's accountable. I wonder how a person can fret over a loss or be impatient when he knows Allah's decree. I wonder how a person can place his hopes in the temporal world when he sees how fickle it is. And I wonder how a person can deny the life to come when he sees the life here. Now, you can see what an awesome treasure that was. And as Prophet Musa prepares to leave, he asks Prophet Khidr for some parting advice. And Prophet Khidr said, never ever put down a person because of a sin he has committed, because there are 3 things most beloved to Allah: moderation when you have a lot, forgiveness despite having the power to take revenge, gentleness with Allah's other servants. If a person is gentle with others in this world, Allah will be gentle with him on the day of Qiyamah. Finally, the key to wisdom is the fear of Allah, and that's what Prophet Khidr tells him. Now, in the course of the 40 years in the wilderness, there's an entire generation of Bani Israel who died. And Prophet Harun died as well. He dies before Prophet Musa. He leaves behind his 2 sons, Shabir and Shabir, and it's Prophet Musa who gives him ghusl and kafan and performs his funeral rites. Now, soon after that, Prophet Musa lies on his deathbed. He's dying as well. And he placed the wooden tablets, the wooden tablets that he got from Mount Sinai, upon which the Torah was inscribed, his armor, his staff, some of his garments, some manna, so that people would know what it was, probably dried manna, his sandals, Prophet Harun's turban, and he put them in the wooden box that Jibreel had given Prophet Musa's mother Yukabid, so she could put the baby in the water, if you remember that. And this box was known as the Ark of the Covenant. It was entrusted to Yusha bin Nun, and it became a sign of the rightful prophet after him. And then at the age of 240, on the eve of the 21st of Ramadan, Prophet Musa dies, leaving no children to survive him. And when he dies, an announcement from the heaven said, Musa has died. But then which creature does not? And eventually it is Yusha bin Nun who leads the next generation of the Bani Israel out of the desert and into the Holy Land, as it's called, just as Allah had promised. And so we come to the end of the life of Prophet Musa. رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ.